So tonight, Rabbi Dr. Leibl Wolf from Australia, we are honored, to say the least. Rabbi Wolf has been a spiritual mentor and a worldwide teacher of spirituality for close to 5 decades. His expertise blends contemporary positive psychology with ancient Kabbalah to facilitate a behavioral approach to life training. He addresses groups from a variety of backgrounds, such as the American Psychological Association and Buddhist monks. He is often a keynote speaker at worldwide conferences, such as the Fortune 500, the Argentinian Convention on Economy and Psycho-Spiritual Solutions, and the Galler Convention on Mind and Body Medicine. Leibl has produced a much sought-after series of meditation and self-mastery audiovisual materials, including his comprehensive life training model, Life Plan 7, which are sold internationally. Most recently, Rabbi Wolf has produced an amazing mindfulness training kit entitled, believe it or not, Kavana Mindfulness. He is also the author of the best-selling book, Practical Kabbalah, I'm a big fan, and contributed to numerous magazines and anthologies. He has lectured in over 450 cities across the globe. Through his original mind yoga approach, Dr. Wolf's audiences are able to master their emotions and empower their lives. As a chassid of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, many of his thoughts come from the teachings of our dear Rebbe. Ladies and gentlemen, I think I've said enough. I would like to minimize my words and give over the mic to our honored guest tonight, Rabbi Dr. Leibl Wolf.
So much. That was a very generous introduction. I always wish that my wife were here to hear the introductions. At home. Thank you for colleagues, shluchim, whom I recall with fondness. And of course, people who are here and some of whom I recognize from past events when we were still traveling. Please God, we will resume that in the near future. Australia still doesn't permit anyone out or in. But then on the other hand, we've had an excellent situation here in terms of no COVID cases here for now for a very, very long time. I know you guys are suffering to some extent, if not more, so I empathize with you. And let's see how we can evolve a discussion today. Now, when I say today, it's because I am tomorrow morning for you, your evening, and I'm the next morning. And maybe we'll get a chance to also dialogue and learn from each other. My intention is to divide this session into 3 parts. The first part will look at what is the meaning of mastery in context of our individual selves. The second part will deal with what might be a training program that involves meditation in terms of everything's fine at my end. Can you hear me? I'm not muted. Wave if you can hear me.
Rabbi, I don't think we... Oh, excuse me. Oh, so it's the volume, Rabbi. We need the volume.
I'm sorry. It's not. Can you hear me now?
Yes, but maybe a little louder, please.
Certainly, I've got it to maximum here.
Perfect. We are good.
Okay.
Go ahead. Sorry for disturbing.
Not at all. Have we heard anything so far? Have you heard my introduction so far? Okay. So I'm going to begin by analyzing what does mastery mean. And the notion of mastery we usually associate with various skills, skills of artisans, skills of people involved in the arts, skills in professions. Invariably, mastery means to be able to apply the skill to some particular arena. There's always elements. There's the, if we were to talk about sculpture, we're talking about Rodin and the thinker on the rock, then one can imagine the kind of skills that Rodin might have had to evolve over many, many years in order to be able to interface the particular tool that he uses in terms of the material, the clay and the stone, and that to be driven by the wisdom of the mind. And if we talk about a Van Gogh, be able to have the paintbrush work, the brush as it impinges on the canvas, and what will be the result, and continually attuning it. Mastery means to be able to work it in a way that your mind intends an outcome. Now, how does that apply to ourselves? So we also have this duality. We have the material of life, life's circumstances. We have the body. The body is our tool. At the same time, we need the force that animates the body, that ultimately directs the body, the paintbrush, the chisel, connected to the mind. So I want to spend a little bit of time speaking about these two dimensions. After all, we have these two dimensions of mind and body were to be alive. And then 5 seconds later, God forbid, would die. 5 seconds before they die, they can hear perfectly, they can see perfectly, let's assume. 5 seconds after they die, they can neither hear nor see. Why is that? Well, you'll answer me simplistically saying, of course, they're dead. But what does dead mean? After all, if you were to analyze the physiology of the eye and the ear, 5 seconds after death, there would be no decomposition at all. In other words, the eye and the ear are physiologically intact. In other words, we don't hear because of the ear alone. We think something's gone missing, some animating force, something that ultimately interfaces with the ear to produce our experience, which is called hearing. That animating force, any name you want. The neshama is the animating force that flows through the physiology of the ear, and when the two interface successfully, you and I are aware of a consciousness called hearing. Likewise, seeing. When the neshama, the animating force, flows a physiological tool, there's nothing mysterious or mystical about the brain. Complexity, certainly, but not mystery. And it is, at the end of the day, a tool. So only when the animating force of the neshama flows through the brain do we get the experience you and I call mind, intelligence, thought, intellect, all these English words that overlap with each other. In other words, I'm trying to hammer home the idea that we are a duality. And our tool is the body. And our canvas is life. How do we direct the tool, the chisel, the paintbrush, the body successfully onto the canvas or the clay? We have to allow the animating force to be able to flow freely through it. So having established this dichotomy, this duality, I want to complicate the picture just a little bit more, if you don't mind. This animating force, where does it derive from? So it derives from Hashem, godliness. It flows down into us. And when it flows down into us, it flows down here in two pathways. One pathway is the animating force responsible for our survival instinct. Me, I, ego. Another strand, the second strand of this animating force, is our true higher order self, that part of us that's connected to God directly, and it's selfless. These two tendencies conflict within constantly. And that's why we are always people of conflict to some extent. In other words, if I can put it this way, I can always be self-centered or other-centered. I can be selfish or selfless. And this is the basic conflict within. Jewish self-mastery is to be able to be always, at all times, selfless. In other words, to allow the higher self to dominate. Let's analyze a little bit more the lower order self, because we're very familiar with that. The nefesh bahamis, we call it. Nefesh bahamit, literally translated, animalistic soul, because not to degrade an animal at all, an animal's a wondrous creation of God, but an animal does have its limitations compared to the human being. It tends to be governed by instinctive survival. It doesn't have a sense of higher consciousness like you and I do, sense of time, sense of values, sense of future, personal aspirations, fulfillment. It seeks to survive. Likewise, we possess that dimension, meaning, as Maslow posited, we quest for food, clothing, shelter, and then perhaps the self-actualization. There is nothing wrong for seeking food, clothing, and shelter. The animalistic side of self is not essentially bad. However, it's an untamed stallion that needs to be tamed so that we can actually harness its potential and strength. For example, how much food? We live, unfortunately, in an obesity-oriented Western society. Why? Because the nefesh bahamis dominates. How much food? Well, I'm not going to eat any food unless it's a haute cuisine created by the best chefs, and also if it's double portions. See, that's the nefesh bahamis talking. Or when it comes to clothing, well, I'm going to have at least 20 sets of these clothes, because there may be one occasion when I just need it. Or a home designed like the one in Gone with the Wind, the mansion with white pillars in front, chandeliers in every room, and of course I will have chandeliers in the toilet as well. In other words, the nefesh bahamis doesn't know insecure. Now this is an important point. Insecurity drives the nefesh bahamis, and you see it, and we see it in our lives, because a secure person wouldn't aspire to have more and more and more. As a segue, let me just share with you an incident that I had some 13 years ago when we had that financial crisis in the world, and in America specifically, and I was counseling a billionaire. He was a billionaire. His assets were worth $1.6 billion before the financial crisis. After the crisis was over, he was worth only, he cried to me like a baby, literally, He felt like the roof had been taken off his home. He felt totally bereft. He was poor again. 500 million he only had left. In other words, insecurity is presented as a matter of relativity. And insecurity is the basis of all our negative inclinations, seeking more and more. Mastery, to take the high self and tame it. To say to Bahami, so to speak, enough. The mind, and now orient yourself to higher order needs. Go out there in the world and make a better place. Master yourself so that you can be a much writing. Make sure that you are a loving and lovable individual. Learn the art of connectedness in a profound way too. And yet, for many, life is a matter of trying to fill vacuum. So in summary, we are made up of a duality of life force animating us and the body. Mastery, to allow that life force to be the higher order one, Nefesh Elokit, the godly side, and then to allow the tool of our life, the body, to express it. That itself requires training. So having established that notion, let me call stress, because indeed, the vast majority of community is stressed for various reasons today. So what is stress? Stress is not a cold that you catch out there. It's not like COVID. Stress isn't out. Stress is in here. Stress is interpret the situation. Nothing out there does things to me. I choose them, or I unfortunately habituate negatively. But it's my choice. For example, if someone is yelling and screaming at you, how might you respond? Well, the format of that is highly advised is stand up for yourself. Don't let them to roughshod over you. And that means that we raise our voice, we empower the size of our body, and what we effectively do is become a monkey. We mimic the other person. And that is a certain thing I need to do to make up for something that they are able to feel they can yell at me, rather than shift from lower order self to higher order self and say, they're yelling and screaming. That means they have a problem. They're in pain. I must be empathize with them. What can I do to assist them? Now, you may not be able to assist them. That's not the point. The point is your attitudinal response to the perceived threat. That paradigm shift lies at the core of neutralizing stress. And we have, unfortunately, another factor that plays out today to reinforce the stress, and that is media. Now, you and I know deep down that the media is not a beneficent educational institution. The media is a commercially exploitative mechanism whose intent is singular, profit. And they know that if they can glue us to the result will be that they'll have more sponsorship, ratings will go up, and they'll have higher profits. And they understand psychology very well. They understand that if they can put us in a state of fear, the result will be we will be glued to the screen. And it becomes a vicious circle. We're glued to the screen. They feed us and project these images of fear into our minds. And the consequence is we live lives of personal insecurity. Now, it's up to you to decide how much media you're going to allow more specifically into your mind. I can't make you change those habits. You can. However, it's very, very important to understand that continuous involvement in media must habituate you to a feeling of insecurity, and that'll dominate your life. Now, the media doesn't present things objectively. Once upon a time, the media today it appeals to its market segment and involved by profits. So a double whammy. We've got COVID, we've got media playing it up, and consequent fear and stress. So let me give you some overall stats, just to put things into context. 94% has not been touched by COVID. People who contract COVID recover successfully. Now, I'm not diminishing its danger. I'm not diminishing its morbidity. And yes, under Jewish law, halacha, all steps to protect yourself and be healthy, because health is a myth. However, what state of mind are we in protecting ourselves? Are we in panic mode? Are we gossiping? I just heard on TV the following, and I just heard the latest news. And of course, invariably, tomorrow the news changes and it's very different again, and all the specialists are changing their mind and they all argue amongst themselves. Have context. Allow yourself to be a balanced individual. Again, stress is what you create. Don't blame the world, don't blame COVID, don't blame economy for stress. Stress is what you create by allowing your lower order self, your nefesh bahamis, to dominate, creating that hollow within. So having discussed initially now looked at one particular resulting in fear, let me move to how do we undo this? How do we create a better self, a more masterful self? How can I respond to the exigencies of the life that I find myself in today in a way that gives me a sense of peace, inner balance, leading to fulfillment? There are many tools at our disposal. Psychology offers very many approaches. Freud offered the approach, lie on my couch, I will find out what happened at your formative childhood circumstances that led you to have the predisposition to fear to COVID. Now, you may lie on the couch for 10 years and 15 years, and you may get a result, may not get a result, and in the meantime, you suffer. Clearly, I'm not a Freudian. I follow the behavioral approach, or the positive psychology approach. That approach says we need to change ourselves from the outside in. What does it mean to change ourselves from the outside in? Which is very Jewish. We began that at Mount Sinai. Remember Mount Sinai? When we were there, you and I met for the first time a few thousand years ago. You don't remember. Short-term memory. It happens to all of us, I know. Anyway, when we were there, we said, Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do and we'll get to an understanding of what we're doing as a consequence of the existential involvement in the mitzvot. Getting involved with it gives us much more insight than theoretical postulating and practice it. Change ourselves from the outside in. What does that mean? Speak differently, do things differently, and the result will happen. You will think differently. Amongst the tools at our disposal is a phenomenon known as meditation. I call it a phenomenon as to what meditation is. You'll get hundreds of different definitions and modalities of what is meditation, to the point that some will claim they have the exclusive knowledge as to how to meditate correctly, etc., etc. There's no such thing as the right way to meditate. Meditation depends on two aspects: why and for what purpose. You need to establish that first before you move to meditation. Why are you meditating? So the lowest common denominator behind all meditations is focusing. But as I said, what you focus on, why you focus, and how you focus depends on the goals of either that spiritual or therapeutic pathway that you're adopting. Judaism has had meditation in its annals from the word go. Contemplating our state of being, trying to understand what it is that I hear. But there are formats of meditation also. For example, in our own Chabad tradition, we have a meditative format known as hisboinenus. Now, hisboinenus would go something like this. Your rabbis here, who are all Chabad rabbis in this instance, spend half an hour, 3/4 of an hour each morning learning a wisdom piece of teaching from one of the masters, from one of the rebbes, before prayer, before davening. Then we would take one little kernel of insight that we gained from that session and spend time focusing on it in such a way that it becomes internalized, so that it becomes us. So that in the course of the day, in the course of our life, we express that wisdom. Now, to be able to do that, it has to become you. What does it mean, become you? If I ask you, what is 7 times 6? And if you were to say to me, oh, hold on, 7 4 is 42, you know how to work it out. You have a methodology, but you don't know it. But if I asked you what is 7 times 6 and you blurted out 42 unthinkingly, that means it's become part of you. That's da'at, that's knowledge of the order of attachment deep within. That's what I'm talking about by hisboinenus. To take a wisdom teaching and implant it within so that it becomes you. So this is one very traditional format of meditation. Then there are, more recently, other formats that Judaism would propose as being very useful. In 1979, the Lubavitcher Rebbe gave a public discourse on meditation. He said, unfortunately, there are many formats of meditation that are absolutely foreign and hurtful to the Jewish soul. Why? Because at the time, a lot of Eastern meditations were entering into our Western spheres, and unfortunately, there are elements of avodah zarah, idol worship. We're not going to develop what that might be at the moment, but it's hurtful to the Jewish soul. So the Rebbe said very pragmatically, the methodologies might be very useful. TM may be very useful. Unfortunately, every mantra that they give you is a name of the deity without you knowing the modality of its foreign elements, and use the methodology to great advantage. And the Rebbe stressed, not everyone needs to meditate. You don't have to meditate to be a good person. But for some people, for therapeutic reasons, specifically perhaps stress, nerves, anxiety, tension, it may be very, very good to practice it. So this may be a format of changing the way that our mind reads reality. So I'm now going to finalize the theoretical part of our discussion with one more piece of information. What do we want to change our mind to in context of reading reality? And even if I do use meditation as a mode, is it that I'm seeking to be able to overcome insecurity and fear? So I'm going to introduce two words right now, and the other word is bitachon. Now, emunah translates usually in English as faith, and bitachon usually translates as trust or security. But they're big, ambiguous words, especially in English. So let me perhaps give you a pragmatic definition, paraphrasing how the Lubavitch Rebbe explained these terms. And belief that everything that current good, no matter what it has been, even God forbid painful, somehow or other, it's for the benefit of this moment. That's emunah. Bitachon is the belief that the challenge you face right now will have a positive outcome. In other words, whatever has ever happened to you is for your current good. Bitachon deals from the present to the future. The challenge you face now will have a positive outcome. These are two axiomatic propositions. Call them beliefs. Now, can I prove these to you? Absolutely not. Can you disprove them? Absolutely not. So we're on equal ground. So I'm asking you to adopt these two in your life as a little antidote to fear and realistic. And I'll then have to discuss with you why, and we'll go nowhere. I'm going to give you two rationales why you should adopt emunah and bitachon. Listen to this. We know now for many years through the mind-body health model that the way we think filters down to the cellular level of the body. Positive thinking improves the chemistry and electrostatics deep within. Negative thinking hurts, disrupts. We have clear statistics that show people who suffer anxiety, people who suffer anger or other modes, A, die earlier, and B, have greater incidence of ill health in their lives. That's indisputable. That's one rationale I want to give you. Adopt emunah and bitachon so that you will, please God, live a long life and a healthy life. But I'm going to give you a second rationale. Harvard University last year published its results from a multi-decade, multi-generational study seeking what creates happiness in people's lives. There was one factor that was head and shoulders way ahead of any other factor that contributes to happiness. You know what that factor was? Relationships, quality of relationships. Now, you know and I know that if a person is a pessimist, a down person, depressive, you don't want to spend too much time. On the other hand, when a person is an optimist, an up person, a happy, in other words, down people, unfortunately, create relationships that are few and also punctuated by all sorts of complications. If you're a person who adopts emunah and bitachon, it's very likely you will attract more meaningful relationships and be a happier person, which in turn has a feedback effect. It'll make your body function better, so the two are interrelated. So I've just given you two rationales to adopt emunah and bitachon into your life. Don't blame the past, whatever happened, whatever you might think. Don't fear the future. The challenge that we face now, we will overcome. 50-50 chance I'm right. And there's rationales to support it. Okay, why don't we now perhaps move into a little meditative exercise. Reinforce some of the things. So adopt a position of symmetry. Just put your feet symmetrically on the ground, seated where you might be. Hands resting on your thighs, back fairly straight. Head well balanced on your shoulders. The head is a very heavy item. And gently close your eyes. Now I'm going to take you through two exercises. One, a calming exercise based on breath. The Hebrew word for breath is neshima. The Hebrew word for soul is neshama. Breath is the first level of expression of the soul. Changing the way we breathe alters the pathways for the soul. So just breathe in and out quite normally. And if you can, try to breathe. Slow down your in-breath and out-breath through the nose. Deepen it. And become of the air entering your nostrils compared to the temperature of the air leaving your nose. Cool air entering, exiting. And just remain focused on that temperature difference, feeling it, allowing that difference to register more and more. Cool. And with your next breaths, deepen them and slow them down, but direct them down to your abdomen, even past your lungs. Take a slow, deep breath, direct it down to the abdomen. And the way to do that is expand your abdomen as you breathe in. This is a little counterintuitive, so practice it. Take a slow, deep breath in, expanding your abdomen, collecting the air down there, and then pull your tummy in to practice that for several breaths. In through your nose deeply, expanding your abdomen, pulling it in, expelling the air. And breathe in for a count of 3. Hold for a count of 3 and breathe out for a count of 4. So take a slow, deep breath in, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, out, 2, 3, 3, hold, 2, 3, out. 2, 3, 4. And just continue breathing through the nose, abdominally, but rhythmically. A complete smooth circle in and out. God, so to speak, breathes as well. God's breath comes in the tides, coming in the petal opening and the petal closing. Night falling. Day rising. Everything breathes. And just become aware that in a space of a few short minutes, you have created a little island within of peace and tranquility. Removal from the pressures of every day. Something you can achieve whenever you choose, breaking the stress cycle. Now let me segue. Become aware of a light source in your head, in your upper head. A pleasant, warm source of light. It can be a light bulb. It's the seat of the soul. Illuminate that light so that it spreads throughout your head and face area. Its warmth, its comfort, the pleasant sensation. Increase the intensity of the light even more into your upper torso, your chest, your upper arms, hands. Feel that pleasant warmth flowing down from that wonderful, feeling comfortable, feeling warm. And now intensify the light even more so that it begins to flow down to your thighs, legs, feet, and toes, so that your whole body feels warm, bright, comfortable. Illuminate the source even more so that now the flow penetrates your skin outwards, creating a glow all around you, an aura of your own. We call this aura around you the Magen Avraham, Abraham's shield. It protects you from all external circumstances. And you activate that protection simply by becoming aware of that aura around you, like a mezuzah at your home. Sense that protective layer of the Mogen Avram all around you, giving you safety, allowing you inner peace. And now so that it radiates from you into your house, into the world, leaving your personal spiritual signature in the world at large, helping to make it a much better place. You are significant. We need your light. Breath. And feel begin moving your fingers and your toes now. Move your fingers, move your toes. And when you feel ready, gently open your eyes, coming all the way back to our session together here. Well, a little experience. Now, of course, doing anything once is experiential, but for training, you have to practice, practice, practice to change the way that the pathways of consciousness flow through our minds, which is now measured in the way or traced the way that we can actually see them on screen, negative thought process into a positive one. That takes repetition, 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 like all training, like all mastery, like all the great painters, like all the great sculptors, the great practice, practice, practice. But I'm telling you that if you practice something for 2 months regularly, a couple of times a day, you begin to change your default habitual responses. Now, 2 months in the context of 120 years of life is not so much. So I'm sure you can do it. Okay, I think that may be enough for us to be able to have a little talk and discussion. I've just put up on the chat my email address. And if you'd like to receive, I produce every day 3-minute meditations. And if you'd like to receive them, just email me with your cell phone because they come on your WhatsApp. And I'll be very, very happy to put you on the list to receive them. Feel free to email me anyway. So Rabbi, I'm going to hand it back to you. I'm very happy to take questions and discussion. So feel free.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rabbi Wolf. That was wonderful. A very interesting, fascinating experience. So that's Bonnie. Good job, Bonnie. So now I'm sure some of you may have questions. So feel free to open up the floor, unmute yourself like this. You could be able to. Oh, I just made it that you could unmute yourself. So now you're able to do that on your own. If you have any questions, feel free to ask ahead. I'm going to post the email again here in the WhatsApp from Rabbi Wolf in the chat room. 1 second. Here you go. Now I posted it for everybody to see. Okay, does anybody have any questions?
Speak now, forever hold your peace.
Okay.
I hope I haven't beaten you into submission so quickly.
Well, I'll ask a question.
Hi, Jody.
Hi, can you hear me? I
Yes, we
guess
can.
She said hello. So you said that there were some, some forms of, I guess, meditation or where you're
Yes.
basically praying to another god or idolatry.
Yes.
I guess my question is, you want to stay clear of that, but can you give some examples?
Yeah. I thought I gave one during the session. Spread of Eastern meditation into the Western world in the late 60s and 70s was primarily Hindu meditation. And Hinduism is fraught with many, many gods, small g gods, which in Jewish law is very, very clearly part of idol worship. And these take on many different forms and names. And for example, as I said in TM, the mantras that they give you are in fact names of Hindu deities. Now, again, I'm just saying and repeating that it's not always the methodology that's the problem, it's just some of the content. So at the end of the day, mind is mind, thought is thought, and how we manipulate mind and thought, you've got many possibilities. We just have to make sure that it doesn't have an effect on our animating. As if the neshama in some way is affected, nevertheless, there'll be pain and hurt as far as Jewish soul is concerned. Let me put it this way, Jody. There are 71 different soul systems in creation. Most people don't realize that. Each one is distinctive. Why God chose 71? You'll have to send a letter to the editor. I have no idea. But one of them is Jewish soul system. Each soul system has its agenda, its mission, its purpose. And it's like a symphony orchestra. You go and listen to the orchestra. Now, walk by the cello and jump across and grab the trumpet. And the pianist got bored of the piano and in the middle of the concert jumped across and grabbed the double bass. The result would be that we wouldn't have beauty of music. Likewise, in the creation of the world, the 71 soul system provides a beautiful spiritual orchestra. Our own notes, we contribute to everyone develops us and notes. So we have to be very, very sensitive as to whether we're playing our own notes. And some of the Hindu teachings, which may be there for the Hinduism, however, are not the right notes for a Jewish soul system.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hello, Rabbi. My name is Perla Katzberg.
Yes.
First of all, I'm very full and honored to meet you in person. I bought your meditation. I've been introduced to Jewish meditations a few years ago, and it's really changed my life. So I'm very happy to finally meet you, I guess. So lately I started teaching.
Thank you.
I started teaching Jewish meditation to French people because it's very not common in the Jewish community to know about meditation and know its importance, even though you, as Lubavitchers, like I think it was just a few weeks ago, the Leibl, maybe even in the past few days, the Leibl talks about meditation and the importance of doing it, but there's not enough awareness of doing it. I was wondering if you can give me guidance. I want to give them all the good that it gave me, but at the same time, I don't know if I'm exactly on the level to do it, and if you had any suggestions, or maybe I can be in touch directly, or if you had any tips or guidance to do it the right way.
Yeah, definitely. So by all means, contact me, email me. But in short, 3 points. 1, don't forget, meditation is one modality amongst very many to assist people and help people. So it doesn't mean that everyone should meditate, number 1. Number 2, if meditation, then the format has to be technically one that works. And secondly, the content of the meditation, you must have a goal. You must read.
Okay, thank you very much.
I think we lost Rabbi Wolf. That was a very strong question. Perhaps it blew him away. Aside, I'm not sure if we're going to get him back on. Let's wait a minute. In the meantime, oh, he is on. Okay, here he is. No, I don't see him. Okay.
Sorry, you lost me for a while.
Yeah, we lost you. Now you're back.
Okay, we're back. I don't know what happened there. It's got to be a goal oriented. So that's very, very important. So I encourage it for the right people, for the right reasons. But feel free to email me and I'll be happy to expand on that.